Hi, this is Priyanka and I welcome you all to Srijan Wednesday webinars. For those who are attending for the first time, this is a community initiative by Srijan Technologies. As a part of this initiative, we will host webinars every alternate Wednesday. We will have speakers from different domains who will talk about subjects like front-end technologies, UI/UX, mobile apps, media, entrepreneurship, digital marketing, and many more. In the first 45 minutes of today's webinar, our speaker will talk about digital personalization and how you can have one-on-one conversation with millions using your website. The last 15 minutes will be for a Q&A round. You can press the raise hand button on your control panel to ask your question by speaking into the microphone, or you can type your questions in the chat box below. I would now like to introduce our speaker for today's webinar. We have with us Jacob Singh. Jacob is the country head for Acquia India, where he manages all alliances, business development and services in the region. He is an expert trainer, project manager, developer and scrum master with 14 years of experience in building great web experiences and has over 7 years of experience in working with Drupal. So without wasting any more time, let's get started. Jacob, over to you.
Hi, thanks Priyanka, and thanks everyone for coming. So we dive right in here. If the presentation lags at all, we're not talking about the same thing. Just please use the raise hand button on the interface to let me know. Briefly, if you guys don't know, Drupal is a content management system. Very popular one, open source, and Acquia is the major enterprise support provider for Drupal. We're founded by the founder of Drupal, and I manage our India office. We're about a 500-person company based out of the U.S. That's not really what I'm going to talk about today. What I came to talk about is something that a lot of our customers care about, which is personalization. So to start with, let's just talk about why do we care about personalization? And more accurately, why do so many companies not care about personalization? And I think a lot of it comes down that we don't really think in terms of the new models in which we do business. So we're stuck in a traditional storefront model, but actually we're online, and customer interactions online are a lot different. So to take you through an example I thought about, let's open a fast food restaurant together. Let's say that we wanted to open McDonald's. It's a franchise model, and so we send in our check, and we get set up. Now the question is, what does a McDonald's look like? And we know there's this creepy clown guy, but outside of that, McDonald's operates all over the world, and different McDonald's look quite different. And they serve different types of people who want to eat different things in different environments, who want to see different kinds of promotions. In fact, McDonald's operates in 35,000 restaurants in 119 countries around the world. So when we want to open a McDonald's, what do we put on the menu? There's over 700 items on McDonald's global menu. As we know, in India, we have things like McAloo tikkis and I don't know what all they're called. Honestly, I would never eat this crap. But you know, we have a lot of different stuff than we have in the U.S., where it's all hamburgers and cheeseburgers and different things like that. And so it's not as simple as, okay, we put up the menu, we get some staff, we start serving. Having a website is like having a restaurant that serves every age group, every language, every country, every income level, at every time of day, in all types of weather, on every device. We're essentially opening a restaurant where anyone who comes in the door, depending on where they're from, the kind of food they like to eat, how old they are, we're going to serve them a menu which is appropriate for them, that's efficient for our business. That's the model that McDonald's has all over the world, and we should try to emulate that when we talk about web experiences, because it's not that everyone comes the same. So I'm going to go through to talk about that and show the benefits of it. We're going to talk about the benefits of it. We're going to talk about the techniques, so some of the theory behind personalization, the things that we do to personalize content technically, how we use those tools and formulate a strategy which yields benefits for our business. And then finally I'm going to wrap up showing, just talking briefly about a couple of the tools that are available on the market. Please do direct your questions in the questions tab as I go along. We'll probably cover most at the end, but if there's something in the middle, I'm happy to take it as well. Okay, let's start with benefits. This should be fairly clear, but what are the business goals of any digital property, meaning website? It's going to be to increase revenue, increase the time on the site, which is probably ad revenue, improve customer loyalty, and reduce cost to acquire customers. It's one of those four things, usually a couple of those things, depending on the site. And when a marketing team looks at a website, they look at conversions, and part that they look at is a deal funnel. So they say that we have all these sources from Google, LinkedIn, Twitter, whatever. They come in, they become leads, and a certain amount of those will eventually become customers. We think this model is fundamentally wrong because this assumes that all customers coming to your website are looking for the same thing and that they're all the same type of people who will be attracted to the same kind of products and the same kind of promotions. And it ignores the fact that everyone's actually different. They may be visiting for a variety of reasons. You know, some people come to buy, some people come to browse, some people come to read reviews, some people come to socialize with their friends. And so we need a marketing plan which takes into account all these different components. And if we do, then we open up several more funnels. We make our funnel a lot wider. Briefly, personalization benefits. When we personalize content and we show the right content to the right user, we see better usability on the site. If I come to a bank and you can determine through whatever technologies you have that I'm probably interested in a loan versus a new account, you can get me to that page faster, which makes me happier as a customer. We're increasing conversions. So if you know that I'm someone who has spent a lot of time browsing the pages of tropical vacation websites, then you're going to be able to promote tropical vacations to me, and you'll probably get me to buy a ticket a lot faster than if you're showing me trips to the North Pole. We increase retention. So personalization means that you're able to show me fresh content that's relevant to me on a regular basis instead of generic content, which may not be relevant to me, which will keep me coming back for more. And then, finally, once you start to learn about me, you can start showing me the type of content and the type of offers which make me feel like I'm known to you. And this is sort of the Facebook effect. It's very controversial. Facebook does its personalization, but one thing that's not controversial is that it's extremely effective in getting people hooked and enjoying the content that they're seeing. So stepping into techniques, there's broadly three components of personalization. The first is testing. So testing is the process of measuring what's effective, what content is effective. Targeting is the process of putting content in front of the right type of user at the right time. And reporting is tracking which of these things is creating results and then building a strategy around it. I'm going to give a few examples. Again, testing would say it was randomly showing different users different content. Testing can be what they call A/B testing, which means we're testing version A versus version B, or multivariate testing. Multivariate testing means that we're testing A and B, A and C, B and C, etc., however many different variations we have. And ultimately, we have to match it against goals. So a goal would be someone checking out, someone registering, somebody clicking on an ad, somebody staying on the site for more than 5 minutes. Different companies define their goals in different ways depending on their business. Here's an example of a real-life test case. Expedia, the global leader in travel, they earned $12 million simply by removing the company name field from the billing form. That's all they did. They did a test. They gave half the users variant A and half the users variant B, and they found that people were more likely to complete the form and complete the purchase if company name wasn't present. A very small percentage of users, but for a company as big as Expedia, that still ended up being $12 million that they made just by doing this one test and evaluating the results. and a lot of people do testing. Testing is not personalization in and of itself. Testing is one of the steps. Because like the test Expedia did, just tested it for all users. It didn't target specific users. Targeting is intentionally showing different users' content based on information we have about them. So that targeting could be explicit. So for instance, if someone is coming from North India, they have North Indian IP address, or they identify themselves as North Indian in their address, we can show a Holi promotion to them. Whereas in the South, a Holi promotion may not be useful because they don't really celebrate Holi very much in the South, not as much. And we could explicitly define that rule in the system. Targeting can also be implicit. For instance, the system determines that certain people tend to click on Holi ads more than others, and those people happen to share the characteristic that they're all from North India, therefore we should show it for them. And that's systems that automatically generate these inferences. So there's two types of targeting that happen, and different systems. Usually most strategies involve both explicit and implicit personalization, which I'll cover in a second. For an example of targeting, I did a search for Dries. Dries Bouthart is the founder of Drupal and the founder of Acquia as well. So I did a search for Dries on Google without being logged in at all in an incognito window in Chrome. And you can see that on the right side of the page, it lists two different Drieses. Dries Bouthart, programmer, and Dries van Noten, fashion designer, both from Antwerp. So that's the normal result. When I'm logged into Google and I do the same search, you can see that I get different results on the left. They're all about this Dries, and I get a big picture of him. They know that I'm looking for this Dries. Given my browsing history, the company that I work for, everything, I search for a lot of stuff about Drupal, and I never search for anything about fashion design. And if those of you have seen me dress, you would know that. So it shows Dries on the right, big and bold. That's an example of targeting that Google's doing, and that's, I'm sure, implicit personalization, right? No one at Google is explicitly saying, people who search for this, show them Dries. Probably a machine learning algorithm. So that's targeting. So testing is determining which content works with which type of users. Targeting is specifically putting content in front of users. And finally, reporting is kind of the most crucial thing, because the whole point of this is that when we're testing and we're targeting, it should drive marketing, IT, and product strategy. So we should be making decisions based on data, and this allows us to make database decisions. Here's a screenshot from Acquia Lift, our personalization tool. So essentially at the top, we're showing that variation A, we're showing 28 visitors, and it resulted 11 goals, number of goals per visitors. And then as we start personalizing, we keep tracking over time if our personalization is causing those numbers to improve. So yes, move on to the strategy component. This is where we'll spend most of the time. So we talk about strategy and personalization. There are three components. There's variance, which I mentioned earlier. A variant is a variation on the content or the user interface. And I'll show you an example in a second. We have context. So a context is data about the user or their behavior that allows us to identify them. For instance, a context may be that I'm accessing the website during my afternoon. We know that about the user. A context may be that this user has been browsing the site for more than 5 minutes. A context may be that they came from Google. A context may be that the weather is sunny outside. These are all where they live. These are all things that we can either infer or that users tell us about themselves. And then finally, there's goals. And goals are quantifiable actions that contribute to the business. So usually when we talk about goals with our customers, we grade them. So on a shopping cart, on a commerce site, a checkout may be worth 1 point for every $5 that they spend. And if they register for email promotions, that may be worth 2 points, one time. If they fill out a form to join a contest, that may be worth half a point. And so we create a bunch of goals and we quantify them. So again, to say it briefly, we test under which contexts a variant will result in more goal conversions, and our reporting allows us to target users and personalize their experience. I'll show this again. This is the cheat sheet for the jargon exam. But here's like a real example. So say we have a long sign-up form versus a short sign-up form. So you come to the site and it says, register for Srijan webinars. And the short form just says, what's your name, what's your email address. And the long form says, what's your name, what's your email address, how much money do you make, what's your job title, and how old are you, what is your weight, So there's 2 different forms. And we as the website owner define both of them, and we say, show 50% of the visitors the long form, and show 50% the short form. And our goals for the site is that when someone submits the short form, that's worth, let's say, 5 points. When someone submits the long form, maybe that's worth 15 points because we know more about them. That's useful for marketing. We could set a goal saying that if that user comes back via an email that Srijan sends them a month from now, that's worth 10 points, right? We've created engagement over a long period of time. If they make a purchase from Srijan's store, which they don't actually have, but then that's worth 20 points. So identify all those things. Excuse me. And then we say that the contexts we might be interested in are how long they've been on the site, what country they've come from, what time it is where they are, even contexts that we measure like what's the percentage of youth in the visitor's city? Is this person likely to be young versus old? We don't know that unless we ask them, but we can determine it based on an average. Say that if you live in Pune, where I happen to be right now, there's a good chance you're going to be fairly young compared to if you're living in, say, Bangalore or Chennai, because this is a college town. So, I don't know if those are actually accurate cities, but you get the idea. There's a lot of things that we may know about a user that we may not think intuitively. And then we can make conclusions from that data. So we run the test for a while, and we find out that short forms get submitted about 25% more than the long forms. But we could determine that long forms create 40% more goal conversions. We could find that people who submit the long form are way more likely to actually go on and do something else that's of value. And so it may be worth it to show that all the time. We may determine that people in cities where the population is demographically younger are more likely to abandon a long form. You might find that young people are impatient, particularly on a mobile device. And then we can make rules in our system that says show the long form more often in demographically older areas. Or when it's a mobile, show the short form. Or if it's rush hour commute time where the person is, show the short form. These may seem like silly small improvements that would be hard to measure, but with the right software and the right strategy, you can measure these things. And if you can eke out 1%, 2% increases in your conversions, and you multiply that across your entire traffic base, your revenue base, it can add up to pretty substantial improvements in how you do your business online. And again, the difference between explicit and implicit, implicit is far more powerful, but requires a lot more data and better software. And implicit personalization is that the software determines for you that younger people are using the short form more often or whatever. And so it starts prioritizing that automatically, and explicit is where we have to explicitly say to do that for that user group. And I'll give you an example from a real-life example we use on Acquia.com, our own site. So on Acquia.com, we have promotions on the front page. We have a case study from Maxim, the magazine. We have CMS selection guide for government, and we have a get a free scan button. What we determined through Acquia Lift, or what Acquia Lift, our product, determined for us, was that the Maxim case study was highly effective for people from the entertainment industry because it's a magazine. It was not effective for people from academia, and obviously it was not effective for people from government. But the government, CMS selection guide for government was very effective for government. Obviously, it was also effective for highly regulated corporations. So if people were in the pharmaceutical industry or they were in the transportation industry, this was this was something good to promote. To get a free scan was effective for us, people coming from Google. So as I said, some of these things, like what industry they work in, this is not something we can guess, but we have people register on Acquia.com. So once they've registered, we have more context about them. And so, the people who are unregistered who come straight from Google, offering them a free scan was very effective. But, a long white paper wasn't as effective. And so by doing this, we were able to increase our click-through rate by 33% on these promotions across the board. And it added a 17% lead increase for us. Now, we have to determine eventually the quality of those leads and all that stuff over time. But 17% lead increase, for a major part of our homepage is pretty good. I mean, that might create a 1% or 2% of pipeline increase and maybe 0.5% of revenue increase on the year, which for a $100 million company is not a small amount of money. So this is just one example from Acquia. We have a very small part of our site that we optimized with personalization technologies. So that's, it's just a little real-world example. I'm happy to share others. The tools that are available, as I mentioned, we have a product. It's called Acquia Lift. This isn't a pitch session, but if you want to find out more about it, you can. I'm happy to talk to you about that if you want to get in touch with me. It's built into Drupal. It's very tightly integrated. It's very easy to use. You can point and click to define goals and context, etc. And we do machine learning so that it does implicit personalization. You don't have to sit there and define rules or look at reports. It will automatically start improving your conversion rates, and it will tell you exactly how much it's improving them. Adobe Test and Target is a very nice product. Got a nice interface. It's incredibly expensive, and it works with Adobe products and some other products as well. And it's essentially DOM-based, which means that it uses JavaScript to inject its personalization into testing as opposed to being built into the CMS. If you're looking for a free open source way to do personalization, there's a module called WEM, Web Experience Management Module in Drupal. It's pretty basic compared to the other things on this list. It only supports explicit targeting, so it's not going to figure out what kind of users like what kind of content for you, but it will allow you to say that users who have looked at content with this tag prioritize that tag's content on the site in other places. So, or you can assign points to people who have done certain things on the site and say, okay, this category of content should show more. Give them 5 points in sports because they participated in a sports contest, that type of thing. And then they can show content. It's a good cost-effective solution for basic personalization. Doesn't have a lot of reporting and feedback, but that's something that someone could probably build. And then finally, if you use Microsoft products, if you use Sitecore, Site Catalyst is their offering. Which is very feature-rich. Again, pretty pricey, but also feature-rich and does implicit personalization. So that's pretty much all I had. Is just a brief introduction to what personalization is and how we approach it at Acquia. I was going to give a little demo of Lyft, but I think I'd rather at this point just take your questions. And if you have any questions you'd like to, we can direct the conversation that way. And if people would like a demo, then you can contact me later and we can do that. I'm available on Twitter. It's Jacob Singh, my name, or else you can contact me through Acquia.com. There's a contact number there for the India branch, and that's my number. So thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Jacob. That was a very interesting presentation.
Do I have to send it back to you?
Thanks. So I'll take it up. I'm sure you guys have a lot of questions after the interesting presentation that Jacob has just shared with us. So please press the raise hand button on your control panel. to ask your question in the microphone, or you can type your question in the chat box below. So, Jacob, while we get a few more questions, I would like to know if you can share a few more examples where, say, people have used Aqualift or some other product for personalization and they've seen tremendous results.
Sorry, I think I may have been muted there. Unfortunately, most of our case studies are under NDA, so we're not allowed to talk about them. We have I can use a generic name. We have a customer who's a big player in the transportation industry, and they were able to increase their ticket sales for holiday promotions by about 20%. One of their effective personalization techniques was that they were able to determine that users who had previously gone to the site but didn't purchase were more likely to respond to a price discount than normal users. I mean, that was what would help them convert. So a lot of times people would visit, they'd see the price, and then they'd leave. When they came back, they'd be expecting the price to have changed. It usually wouldn't, but if they're able to give those people even a slight discount, it resulted in a massive increase in sales. That's one that comes to mind. Other ones, I don't know specifically for the Lyft side. I mean, this isn't really my specialty within Acquia. It's just something that I'm interested in that we've started doing. But I'm happy to share them. If people want to get in touch with me, I'm happy to send out. I can send out some resources to this list of people who attended with a few case studies that we have.
All right, that sounds great. So, a question just came in. Somebody wants to know if he can get a recording of the demo.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. In fact, there's a, let me switch over here. On our site, take a look here. This has some more information about Lyft, and there's actually a video here on our site. If you just Google Acquia Lyft, you'll find it. I can send it the link as well. Let's see. If you want, I mean, I can show you a couple quick screens from it now. We have time. So here's, like I said, there is a video here on the Acquia Lyft page. If you search for Acquia Lyft, you'll find it. It's the first thing. This is a travel portal that we invented for the purposes of demos. One of the things that we have on the left here is we can see all the campaigns. If I click on the registration form campaign, you can see that there's a registration form here, and I can see option A and option B of the form. One of them has a zip code in it, and one of them doesn't. When we look at the goals for it, the goals for the registration form are, oops, I went to the wrong place, 1 second. The goals are reads entire home page, hovers over the guides section, so things while clicking there, form submission, submit registration form, long form submission, short form submission. These are all different goals that have different values attached to them. If you want to add a new goal, you can do so from here. So we could add a goal, for instance, that we want to see who clicks on win a free trip to London. And by clicking add goal and then clicking on this promotion, oh, it's already an active goal. We'll say we'll do this one over here instead. Then we can add that action as a goal. And give it a value. We'll give it 4 points. And that creates a goal in the campaign that we can then measure against. In our reporting section, we can see here that we have the registration form, and the control group is option A, which is a short form, and then the test one is option B. And we can see how many times it converts, right? How many points we get, and then we can experiment. So here we'd be able to, see when we show it's 20% is going to the random, and 80% is personalized. So we automatically will personalize it based on what we've already learned, and 20% of the time we'll just show it to everybody. That allows us to see if our personalization is actually being effective versus a random control sample. And here we're testing against all kinds of different stuff. We're testing option A versus option B in North America. We're testing option A versus option B in New England. We're testing option A versus option B in the Pacific. We're testing it in Southeast Asia. We're testing it on weekdays, on weekends. This runs through all the possible contexts that we're going to be testing it against that we've configured, and tells us that, because something, it may be effective to show option B in the Middle East, but it may be more effective to show option A in North America. And so by running a regressive analysis, we're able to determine that here. And all of this is stuff that's cool if you're into geeky reports, but really what we try to push on Acquia Lift is that the system just figures it out for you. So it learns over time what's effective under what context, and then it starts to personalize the content automatically. And that's ultimately what we want to get to. It's not so much having to read these reports, although they're kind of interesting sometimes. So yeah, that's the basics of this. Like I said, this isn't really the part of the Acquia that I work on too much, but if you're interested in learning more about it and seeing if it makes sense for your company, you can get in touch with me, and I'll get in touch with put you in touch with the people who manage this product and can give you a demo, like a proper longer one with your own content and such.
All right, thanks, Jacob. I'm sure your presentation has been very exhaustive, so we are not receiving any more questions right now. So I would request those who have questions after the webinars to please mail them at webinars@srijan.in. Once again, thank you, Jacob, for your session. I'm sure everybody found your presentation very interesting and insightful. And thanks a lot, everyone, for joining us in today's webinar. I would also like to announce that our next webinar is on how to acquire 8 million users with $0 by Nishchal Shetty, founder and CEO of Just Unfollow, on 23rd of July. For registrations, you will be getting a mail from our site. So stay tuned and have a great day, guys.
All right. Thank you.